Want to be happy? Build a life, not just a business. Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and this channel was created to help you overcome the #1 challenge that is holding you back, a lack of belief in yourself. You watch these videos because you know there's something more inside you too. You've got Michael Jordan level genius at something. So today, let's live your best belief life and get some incredible motivation from the one and only Dr. Myles Munroe.
That is, the wealthiest spot on this planet is not the diamond mines of South Africa. It's not the oil fields of Iran or Iraq. It's not the uranium mines of the Soviet Union. It's not the oil wells of Iraq. The wealthiest spot on this planet is not the sea food of the oceans. But the wealthiest spot on this planet is right in your neighborhood. It's the cemetery. If I could mine the cemetery like you mine gold, I would be the wealthiest man on the planet. Why is the graveyard so wealthy? Why is there so much treasure in the cemetery? Why? Because buried in the cemetery are dreams that were never fulfilled. Books that were never written, ideas that never became reality, visions that were never manifested. There in the graveyard are paintings that were never painted, songs that were never written, books that we'll never read. In the cemetery are great manufacturing plants that were never built. In the cemetery are sermons that were never preached. The cemetery is pregnant with unused success. Buried in the cemetery is treasure that makes God weep. My greatest fear tonight is very simple, and that is I am afraid that most of you in this room and in this auditorium tonight, and perhaps watching this program, you are going to add to the treasure and the wealth of the cemetery. And that makes me very sad. Because buried inside of you are dreams that you still carry, ideas that God planted in your heart that you still haven't done yet, paintings that you've been planning to paint, and books you've been thinking about writing, and paintings you keep procrastinating about. And what I'm so concerned about is we'll never see your painting. We'll never sing your song. We'll never read your book, and we'll never operate in your business, and we'll never experience the invention that you keep procrastinating on. I trust that you will rob the graveyard of your treasure. Yes. I pray that you will disappoint the cemetery. I pray that when the morgue gets your carcass, it'll be empty. Treasure. What do you call this massive treasure that's in every cemetery? It's called potential. Write the word down. Potential. Everybody say it. Potential. Say it one more time. Potential. Why is this called potential? Well, potential, I want to define it for you one more time. Potential is untapped power. Potential is unused ability. Are you ready? Potential is dormant strength. Potential is hidden power. Potential is all you could be but you haven't become yet. Potential is how far you can go in life but you haven't gone yet. Potential is who you really are but we haven't seen you yet. Potential is everything you could be but you haven't become it yet. Potential is all you can do but you haven't done yet. In essence, potential is never what you've done. Please make a note of that. Potential is never what you've done. It's always what you could do, but you haven't done yet. In essence, whenever you've done something, it's no longer your potential. Therefore, potential is everything that is yet unused that is still within you. I am convinced that God has buried in every human being, all 5.2 billion of us, treasure that is yet to be tapped. Let's put it this way. If potential is not what you've done, but what you could do, then whatever you've done is no longer your potential. Therefore, you should never be impressed by what you've done, because if you are impressed by what you've done, it'll stop you from doing what you could do. The greatest enemy of progress is your last success. The greatest threat to moving ahead is getting excited about where you are. Whenever you feel like what you've done is the best you could do, you just died. Come on. No matter what you've done, if it didn't kill you, there's more left. As long as you're breathing, God got something else left inside. Until you are gone, you're still pregnant. Because God sent you here, and no human being came to this planet empty. I repeat, no human came to this planet empty. Now, I want to talk to you about the best kept secret. And the best kept secret is a strange secret, because only one person has it. And the secret is about you. There's a secret about you that nobody knows except the one who manufactured you. There's information on you that has been kept, because if it was ever given to anybody else, they won't believe it. First, I want to deal with a little issue before I go any further. I want to talk about how to be set free so you can discover your secret. The key to freedom is knowledge. Just write these principles down. The key to freedom is knowledge. And the key to knowledge is truth. The key to knowledge is truth. And the key to truth is the manufacturer. I repeat, there's a principle. The key to truth is the manufacturer. Let's talk. The greatest enemy of man is not sin. The greatest enemy of man is not Satan. The greatest enemy of man is ignorance. Ignorance is the cause of all destruction. As a matter of fact, we blame so many things on this entity that we call devil that we've become irresponsible lately. we eat bad, get sick, and then blame it on the devil. Uh-oh. Ignorance is the major enemy of man. God says, my people perish, or they are destroyed because of a lack of knowledge. And because they have rejected knowledge, I must also reject them, and they cannot represent me. And then he goes one step further. He says, and I must also reject their children. Here's the point. If you don't know anything, and you teach your children what you know, then your children is as smart as you. Write this down. All I know is what I've learned. Say it with me. All I know is what I have learned. One more time. All I know is what I've learned. Now you got to let that sink in for a minute. No matter how many books you bought, you only know the ones you read. Don't look now if someone's looking at you. Some of you bought books last year and haven't cracked the pages yet. And you show people your library and try and impress them with what you don't know.
Come on now. Keep talking.
You bought videotapes and haven't burst the plastic on it yet. You bought cassette tapes and haven't listened to them yet. You see, buying information doesn't give you revelation. Now here's what God says about that. He says, because you have rejected knowledge, I must reject you. It's impossible to reject something that was not available. Therefore, your ignorance was a decision. 90% of the knowledge you need is right in your house in a book you never read.
That's good.
Every time you pass a library, knowledge incriminates you. God says you are perishing because you lack knowledge. So don't blame it on the devil. Don't blame it on your mother-in-law.
Come on now.
Don't blame it on your teacher. Don't blame it on the school system. You don't need a teacher to learn. Oh, come on, say something, Minnesota. Some of y'all blaming it on the education department. You don't need a professor to make you read a book. I'll never forget the day when I walked on the premises of the university I attended. I walked into my first class, freshman, and here comes this professor. And I was so excited, all my books, and I sat there ready, eager to learn. And I saw this great bank of reservoir of knowledge walk into the room. And I said to myself, I'm going to learn so much from this great man. And he stood there for 5 minutes and says, good morning. I'm glad that you are here today. Our course of study shall last for this semester. You have 5 books to read. Tonight I want you to take the first book, read the first 5 chapters, write a paper. I'll see you tomorrow. Where are you going? I just paid $2,000 to come to this school. Come back here, preacher. And he left. And I got mad. And I said, wait a minute, I just paid $2,000 tuition and another $1,600 for room and board, and I bought all these books for hundreds of dollars, and the man spent 5 minutes in the class. I went to the library and realized that I was going to be spending over $57,000 for someone to tell me go and read a book. Come on, clap. You know it's true. Knowledge is the key to freedom. But the key to knowledge got to be checked carefully. I used to think that knowledge was power. That's not necessarily true, because you can learn the wrong thing. Jesus said the only thing that can set you free is not knowledge, but knowledge of the truth. It's dangerous to learn the wrong thing well. Some people are experts in error. Come on, talk to me. So knowledge doesn't mean you're smart, because what you may have learned may not be true. And the most dangerous thing for a person to have is knowledge that is erroneous, that they believe is true. The most dangerous human being I've ever met is one who has zealous error. People with zeal who are wrong. And it's the cause of great tragedy in our humanity and in our history of man. Most of the problems in our past are results of zealous, erroneous people. People who had information that was erroneous, it was wrong, but they thought it was right and they were zealous. Hitler, for example, believed that everybody else was subhuman and the Aryan race was the only true human race. And that error made him massacre millions of people. The Crusaders, who were Christians, were under an error, and they killed thousands and thousands of people all over Europe because they had a theological error and tried to force people to come to Jesus with the sword. And then you used to preach against speaking in tongues, and you used to rebuke people who did it, and now you're doing it more than they. Don't look at me so funny. Some of you used to have scriptures to prove it was from the devil. Look at you now. It's amazing what we do with error. We defend it vehemently. That's why Jesus said, knowledge of the truth shall set you free. Not just knowledge, but the truth. Now I mentioned to you that truth, the key to truth is who? The manufacturer. What do I mean by that? The manufacturer is the only one who knows the truth about his product. Let me try it one more time. The manufacturer is the only one who knows the truth about his product. Yes. Everybody else is experimenting. Come on now. That's good. Everybody else is guessing. And everybody else has opinions. The manufacturer knows the truth about his product. That's why you shouldn't get information from anyone else except the manufacturer. Don't even believe the retailer, because he's in business for sales. Lord, help me tonight. That's why I don't trust humans to tell me who I am. Don't depend on customers' experience to determine the value of a product, because some customers don't know how to use it. Y'all are slow here tonight. Many of us have literally allowed people to talk us out of good products because they abused it and it didn't work for them. Not because your marriage didn't work doesn't mean marriage doesn't work. Hello. You just didn't know how to stay married. You didn't follow the manufacturer's manual. You didn't follow the specifications. Hello, somebody. So if the toaster didn't work for you, that doesn't mean the toaster ain't no good. You just plugged it in wrong. Are you understanding me? The truth about a product is only hid in the mind of the manufacturer.
There's some things that you can do that are based on the kingdom system that will give you the success and the prosperity that you need in the midst of that crisis. A couple of things about crisis to write down. Number one, crisis is the incubator of creativity. Most of the time, we're not creative until something bad happens to us. When things fall apart, it makes us think outside the box. Secondly, crisis demands a new way of thinking about old problems. An old problem is you got to pay your mortgage. The problem is the source of income that you used to pay it with has been dried up. But the old problem hasn't gone away. You still got to pay your mortgage. So what you got to do is now find a new way to generate income to pay the old problem. So crisis actually forces you to think about new ways to solving old problems. Thirdly, crisis is an opportunity to improve and advance over old ideas. Sometimes the only way for you to move on is for something to happen to push you. And many times we don't grow until we have to. So crisis comes many times to improve us because we've been stuck in a place too long. And number five, crisis comes also to produce growth, and it also produces a sense of development. It makes you develop new approaches to life. Crisis creates new opportunities. It's amazing when we look at the world today, every progressive invention came out of a problem. And that's because crisis makes you develop and think in new ways. Number seven is very important. Crisis produces and manifests true leadership ability. No matter how much you would like to claim to be a leader, only crisis proves it. You are not really a leader in good times. Anybody can lead in good times. Leadership is tested and proven when there is a crisis environment. So crisis comes to test to see if you are as mature as you claim to be. Shakespeare said these words. I love it. He says, "Sweet are the uses of adversity." Say that with me. Sweet are the uses of adversity. That's a deep statement. In other words, he's telling us when things are adverse, when things are in crisis, don't panic, use them. Use them for the positive result. Everything that happens to you could be used to produce something good. That's amazing. Everything. So Shakespeare caught on to something. He realized in his own thinking that adversity can be used to benefit the one under the adversity. The richest man, one of the richest men in America, his name is John Huntsman. John Huntsman is the founder of one of the largest companies in the United States, and they produce about 90% of all the plastics, forks, and spoons that you use in your house or at your parties. This company is this is like the number one company in the world that produce plastic plates and plastic cups. This is the company here. It's owned by this man. His company fell into debt, and his company actually collapsed some years ago. And he went into a crisis mode, and he went to the bank. The bank said they ain't loaning no more money, and his company went into bankruptcy. He went home and told his wife, "I quit. I'm never going to start this company again. I'm going to go find me a job. It's over." His wife said to him, "Honey, you told me that this idea was given to you by God and that you going to build this and make it successful. That's why I married you. I believe you. Now, if you're going to do this, go back and start again." He said his wife made him go back and ask another bank. He left the old bank. And he showed the bank the truth. He said, "Here's what I did in the last 15 years. Here's what happened. And I could start again. I know how to build a business. Will you trust me?" And the bank says, "I'll take a chance on you." He had no credibility, no assets, just a record that he built a company. The bank took a chance on him. And he began to start up the company again. Today, the company is worth over $14 billion. He ran for the president of the United States during the time of Obama. If you remember this man's name, he's one of the candidates for the president of the United States. Billionaire. Here's what he said as a result of his crisis. I quote, "If there is a silver lining to bad times, it is this: when facing severe challenges, your mind is normally at its sharpest." End quote. Now look at the statements in that statement. He said, when you are under the biggest pressure, that is when your mind is normally at its sharpest. Because your mind is having to think of things it never thought of before. See, the problem with humanity is we are creatures of habit. We have a habit of going to work. And all of a sudden you ain't got no work, you're still going to work. There are folks who get up, put their clothes on, forgot they got fired. And they drive past the place up and down, just looking at the place. Hey, you are fired, okay? Break the pattern. We got a pattern of being broke. So we even get money, we spend it just to make sure we are broke. It's a pattern. But crisis comes to break the pattern. Write this down. Crisis initiates new concepts. It also renews our vision. It cancels experience. This one is important. When a crisis comes, your experience becomes useless. This is why the most silent voices today are the economists. They are saying nothing right now. For the last 5 years, the economists have said nothing. They've made no recommendations. You know why? Every principle they ever taught them in school has been canceled. The economy that is now existing never existed before. They never saw a country become bankrupt. They never saw a failed government before. What do you do when nothing you learned is working? A crisis comes to cancel that. And this is why I think, I've been taught, like many of you, my parents were so nice. They said, children, go to school, get an education. And then they would say, experience is the best teacher. Well, that's not always true. Experience can be your worst enemy. Because if you got experience in doing something a certain way, and the environment changed, your experience becomes your enemy. Well, I never had to do this certain job before. Yeah, but you broke now. You better learn to do it. Well, I got a lot of experience in banking. Yeah, but ain't no bank hiring right now. You got to go work in the hotel. I got a lot of experience in hotel. Yeah, but hotels ain't hiring. You better go learn to be a gardener. Come on, don't look at me that way. See, your experience is destroyed by crisis. Sometimes we become so hooked on our experience, we wait until we find something that can use our experience, and nothing wants your experience. You have to almost retool yourself sometimes. You got to relearn things. You got to learn new skills. Why? Because life has a way of shaking things loose. There are people right now who are so proud they are starving. I can't get that job. That's below me. Oh, yeah? You better get that job. Take that job that's available. We're going to soon bury you below the ground if you don't get your act together and put your pride in your pocket. If a job opens up, tell them, I'm going to take it for a season.
I tell our young people, I say to you right now, stop looking for employment. Why don't you position yourself differently and look for deployment? To be employed means that somebody else is benefiting from your energy. To deploy yourself means that you are using your own energy to be productive. So instead of waiting for someone to give you a job, create your own work. That's why I tell people there's a difference between your work and your job. Your job is what they train you to do. Your work is what you were born to do. Your job is your skill, which they can fire you from at any time. But your work is your gift. No one can take that from you. Your job is where you get compensation for activity. Your work is where you get fulfillment because you love it so much. Your job, you can retire from. Your work, you can never retire from your work because your work is you. So when a person discovers their work, they no longer need a job because their work makes them productive. So there are young people in this country who are full of talents, full of gifts. And I want to say this too. Every problem in life is a business. All businesses are simply someone solving a problem. So the more problems that are in Kenya, the more businesses available for young people to begin. And this is what I think we are lacking. We are trained to get a job. We're not trained to start a business. We are trained to let other people employ us, not trained to deploy ourselves. And this even happens in governments in our emerging countries. Most governments depend on external investors for survival of their countries. How about this? How about focusing on producing your own end products to sell to the investor? My perspective, for example, even in Kenya, Kenya has so much natural resources. The greatest resource in Kenya is the intelligence of its people. All the other natural resources are supposed to be complementing that natural source of intelligence. I want to encourage this great country, Kenya, as you celebrate 50 years, to refocus your entire culture of development. And that is focus on not just providing natural resource material for the world, but how about providing end products for the world?
Power for me to be successful was not in the teachers, it was not in the educational system, it was not in my culture, it was not in my society, it was within me. And I began to think, God, if you are a good God, why am I poor? If you are a great God, why are these people better than me? If you make me in your image, why are they special and I'm a monkey? And that night, no thunder, no lightning, no earthquakes, nothing. I just heard a voice in my mind. And the voice said, I ask you to believe me and you will be saved, not them. And that night, I made a commitment to believe what God said. 13 years old, I said, okay, I believe that I have the power to experience far beyond all I can ever ask, think, or imagine. 13 years old. And that's when my pursuit of God began.
When was it that you realized you wanted to become a preacher?
You know, I didn't want to become a preacher. Matter of fact, today I still don't consider myself a preacher. I think it drove me to have a passion to help everybody who's been oppressed. My passion is to make sure that no one should live under what I experienced. I never desired to be a minister. I desired to help people. Success is not what you've done compared to what other people have done. Sometimes we think success is a competition. Competition is a sign of insecurity. Successful people have no competition. If you study them, they're not interested in what you're doing at all. They're too committed to what they're doing. Successful people don't compare themselves to anyone. That leads to point number 2. Success is defined as what you've done compared to what you were created to do. In other words, success and failure is determined by how much you fall short of what the manufacturer designed you to perform. In other words, success is competition with yourself. Let me put it another way. If you knew that you could have done better, you are a failure. Think about it for a second. I remember one day when I came home from school, I was so excited. I got a B in class, and I ran home, told my mama, look at my exam, my test. Little kid, you know, I was excited. I got a B, and I got 75 on the test. And I was so excited. And my mother says, what are you so proud of? She said, I know you, boy. There's an A inside of you. Go back and go study again. Here I am, so excited with a B. She said, no, you an A kid. She was teaching me the lesson. She said, now you came first in the class with 75. You are still a failure. It simply means the other kids didn't try at all. So you can always find someone less than you.
That doesn't make you a success.
Be fruitful. Okay, this is where business begins. The word fruitful in Hebrew means productive. It doesn't mean to have children. I was shocked when I discovered that. The first command God gave man was what? Be productive. In other words, produce something. Say it. Be productive. Stop saying fruitful because you're thinking about babies. Tell your neighbor, be productive. Be productive. No, say it this way. Produce something that I could buy. That's the first command. Now, here's something important to remember. The first command is to be what? Fruitful. The first command should have been be seedful, because fruit is a result of seed. You can't have fruit unless you have a seed that has a tree that bear fruit. God ignores the entire first step. Look at me, man. Just get deep now. God said, look, I even ain't gonna talk about seed. Oh, you still ain't got it. Listen, when God demands something from you, it exists. So the demand for fruit is a presumption that there is seed somewhere. The number one reason why there's poverty in North Tulsa is not because of a lack of investors coming in, but a lack of productivity inside. Listen. Here's how you measure a nation's wealth. Listen carefully. A nation's wealth is measured by 3 letters, all nations. Gross national productivity. In other words, if the nation ain't producing, they call it poor in the UN. Money doesn't make you rich. Productivity does. That's why China is one of the biggest threats right now. Even though they may be poor, they are producing. What do most people in the North Tulsa do? Consume. You keep going to the bank to borrow money to buy stuff that isn't productive. I mean, if you're going to buy a vehicle, buy a truck so you can become one who collects garbage to produce a business. Don't buy a car to drive around in. That ain't productive. The command presumes that seed exists in you right now. There's a seed. That's your business. And God says, show me the fruit of it. Produce something. Now, when you produce a product, watch God's strategy now. Let's say, okay, Apple computer. Stephen Jobs quit school because he had an idea. Everybody say idea. That's your seed. Your seed is the idea that won't quit. This guy had an idea. He went to visit a plant to see a computer. And he went and he saw this computer, and the computer was big as half of this room. He looked at it, he says, why can't they reduce that to the size of a desk? And he walked out. And he kept seeing visions of that great massive computer the size of a room on a desk. I wonder what you see that won't leave you alone. Write this down. Every problem is a business. I'm going to say it again. Every problem is a business. One man see bare feet, that's a problem. The other one see a shoe company, that's a business. One man see a hog island, that's a problem. Another man sees a resort, that's a business. Produce your seed. Produce your fruit.
And I want to focus on discovering and releasing, how to release your hidden greatness. Every human being in this room and those watching by the internet, you have inside of you, I have no doubt about it, greatness. But most people will die with their greatness on the inside. And this is why we have this conference. Because we don't want you to be one of those persons who die with their greatness. Let me say a few comments about greatness. Every human desires two things in life. I want you to write them down. Two things every human wants. 6 billion of us, and now 7 billion since last April on this planet, want two things. And everything you do is motivated by these two things. One, we want power. Every young person, every old person wants power. We got to talk about what power is. And the second thing we want is greatness. We don't talk about these too much, but every human being wants power and they want greatness. This is why we are motivated to wear certain clothing. We call them power clothing. This is why we try to join a gang, because being in a gang of people gives you power to threaten other people. This is why we would actually want to steal money or gain money, because money gives you power to buy things that you want to make you feel important. Everything we do is motivated by these two things, power and greatness. Now, I want to mention something about power. What is power? Power, I want you to quote it with me out loud up on the board so you can remember it when you leave here. What is power? Read it. Power is the ability and the capacity to control circumstances and in the environment. That's power. Power is what? The ability to control circumstances and to control your environment. That's what power is. And everybody wants it. The politician wants it. The banker wants it. The parent wants it. The young person wants it. Everybody wants power to control circumstances. What is greatness? Write this down. Greatness, out loud please, is a sense of value, importance, and significance. That's greatness. Greatness is when you feel that you are important to the world. You feel great when you feel that you are valuable to society. Greatness is when you feel that you are significant to your generation. In other words, the desire for all of us to be great and to control our environment is natural. You, as a 16-year-old, your desire to become the head of the class is a desire for greatness. You, as an 18-year-old, your desire to go to college and get a degree so you can get a better job, so you can make more money, so you can buy things you want, is a desire for control, a desire for greatness. And this is why people get in trouble. They're pursuing power and greatness. Now let me repeat again. The pursuit of power and greatness is natural. As a matter of fact, if you don't want to be great, something's wrong with you. If you have no desire to be powerful, something's wrong with you. Every person here desires these things. I put it this way. God is not against your desire for greatness. He's not against your desire for power, because God created you to be great.
Potential is who you are, but no one knows it yet. Potential is who you could become, but you haven't become it yet. Potential is how far you can go, but you haven't gone yet. In other words, potential is never what you've done. Because once you've done something, it ceases to be your potential. Potential, therefore, has to do with what you haven't done yet, that you can still yet do. And that's why I am after you. I came after you because I'm bored with what you've done. I'm bored. You got a PhD, so what? It's over. What's left?
That's right.
Potential, therefore, is not about what you've achieved. It's what you haven't achieved yet that you could achieve. And this is why I say this, that the enemy of your potential, write it down, is your last success. The greatest enemy of your potential is your success. Because when you become successful at something, it tempts you to stop. This is why I am always nervous about people's accolades concerning me. I don't trust too many awards people give me. I have so many degrees bestowed upon me, and I hide them away because I don't even want to see them. They may stop me from moving. Right. Nothing is more dangerous than camping on your success. And so you possess the potential and is hidden. There's some examples of character that you need to write down. Now, why do we call, for example, the alphabet characters? Because A is always A. B is B at 2 a.m. in the morning. C is still C, whether it's in Africa, Asia, or in the Bronx. It doesn't change. That's why we call them characters. Why do we call numbers characters? Because 1 is always 1, and 2 is always 2. Whether you are using it in the night or the day, it doesn't change. It's character. Why do we call statues characters? Because, like Victoria, no matter what happens around them, they never change. Why do we call principles characters? Because principles are laws. They never change. You know, one of the secrets to my success as a coach of government leaders and business leaders, one of my secrets of being an effective communicator, one of my secrets of being a good teacher is simple. It's not my education. The secret to my success is I only teach principles. That's it. You can never disagree with a principle. You can ignore it. You can hate it. But you can never disagree with it. For example, gravity is a principle. You could fast and pray and speak in tongues, but if you jump off a building, you're going to die. Why? You are violating a principle. Character is that way. That's why a person with character does not live on what's popular. They live on what is principle. And this is why it's very difficult for politicians to have character. Because politics is based on popularity, which means you will literally sacrifice your principles to protect your popularity, which cancels your character, which means you cannot be trusted. There are preachers who are politicians. They would sell their principles for a pot of porridge. No character. Character, therefore, is simply that which is unchanging. Write it down. My question is, how often do you change? Who are you? Are you the same person all the time? Are you consistent? Are you predictable? Leaders must have character. Why? Write this down. People will not follow you if they don't trust you. So character attracts loyalty.
The kingdom gives his wealth to his citizens to accomplish his purposes in the colony. This is a very important statement. The kingdom and the king himself, he owns everything, and whatever he gives you is not for you. It's for his purposes in the colony. This is important because the moment you think what you receive is yours, then you lock it up. You stop it with you. You hold on to it. And that is anti-kingdom. If God cannot get it through you, he won't get it to you. Anything God gives you is to accomplish his purpose in the colony. I remember the scripture that explodes in my mind at the moment. Deuteronomy chapter 7 and chapter 8 are important chapters to read. It's when the Lord brought them out of Egypt. He began to tell them how they must think, their attitudes. And then he said to them, he said, I am your God. And it is I who will give you the power to get wealth. Now that word power there means ability or skill. I will give you the ability, the power, the skill to get wealth. And the sentence ends like this: so that I might accomplish my covenant that I made with Abraham. In other words, I'm going to make you wealthy to fulfill my covenant in the earth. So anytime the king gives you resources, remember, your first question should be, what's it for? Not who it's for.
My definition of leadership is very simple yet complicated. I believe that leadership is the capacity to influence others through inspiration, not manipulation. And that inspiration comes from a passion which is motivated by a sense of vision and a sense of purpose. So leadership is first personal, then it's corporate. Leadership is not something you pursue, it's something you discover. Leaders are born when a human discovers something more important than their personal ambition. Leadership is
You don't pursue it?
Leadership is no. True leaders do not seek followers. Leaders actually are pursuing a passion toward a purpose that gives them a sense of destiny. For example, one of the greatest leaders of example that I use is Nelson Mandela, one of your great presidents. He never sought followers. Think about it. He discovered a purpose that was more important than his private preservation, his private ambition. He pursued that purpose privately. It attracted people. So leaders don't seek followers. Followers are attracted to leaders. Leaders are more concerned about discovering a purpose to improve the life of humanity that's more important than their personal ambition. So they sacrifice themselves to accomplish something for the greater good. We find that very rare lately. Most people we call leaders are simply professional manipulators. And they actually are more concerned with their own promotion than promoting the people.
Intellectual development you have, the more spiritual development you have, the more psychological development you have, emotional stability, you become more valuable to the world. And let me say this finally. If you become valuable to the world will pay you to be yourself. That's right. So it's important for you to become a person of value, not to seek value in things. That's right. I get paid for what I know, not for what I do. And I think this is what we need to perceive as being most valuable. Do you know what they actually call intellect? They call it capital. You know, intellectual capital is really a commodity. And so I want to encourage our young people to focus on discovering the purpose for your life, why God created you. And then discover your gifts, and then refine them, develop them, practice them, and then even begin to serve them freely to your community. Develop yourself. And in a short time, you'll discover that people will pursue you. Because when you develop your fruit and you maximize your fruit of your gift in life, just like a tree, trees never bring their fruit to you. That's right. They just simply manifest them. You are attracted to the tree. So when you develop your gifts and refine your gifts, you don't need to look for followers. They'll find you. That's right. After all, leadership is not about finding followers. It's about followers being attracted to what you have. And this is true commodity.
How do you think, in your opinion, sir, can we solve this leadership problem in Africa?
You know, the leadership problems in all developing countries, not just Africa, but all of them, really historical problems. And all of them result from the same experience.
and that is colonialism. Oppressive colonialism in the last 300 years was not designed to produce leaders. It was designed to maintain followers. In other words, the colonialists had no interest in making the oppressed leaders. They wanted to make them slaves. And so there was no need for them to train them, to educate them, to prepare them for power, to manage resources. And so when those colonial powers finally took the chains off and released these nations, they ended up with nations that had a lot of resources but no leadership training. And so much of the leaders that emerged from post-colonial situations were actually leaders who were freedom fighters. They had to have wars for their freedom over from the imperialist powers. So many of these become military people, or they become jungle fighters. Suddenly, you have a guy who fought the military. He's now a prime minister or a president. I mean, this is an amazing transition here. And so, how do you come out of the jungle and become a prime minister? That's what most of history is for these third world countries. I had to fight for my freedom, and now I'm the prime minister. And I have no training to run a country, to manage resources, to develop programs, to establish institutions. And here I am in charge of a country. And so you could say that the leadership problem in developing countries is proof that colonialism failed in developing leaders. And I put this at the doorstep of the colonial powers who are still around today. Many of those powers actually blame continents like Africa, England and America and Great Britain and France. They look at Africa and they go, you guys can't lead. Look what you've done. You're corrupt. And my response is no. The question is, did you produce us as leaders? Don't blame us for our lack of experience and development, our lack of capability and skills. You didn't train us. So I think that this period we're living in right now, where most of the leaders who fought for freedom are still alive, many of them are dying, but we got a few of them left. This is a whole era of what I call transition. It's experimentation. And what we need now is to prepare young men and young women who are trained as leaders, no longer just products of circumstances, but who have been intentionally trained to become leaders, to develop the skills and the character and the fortitude and the understanding of passion and vision and sensitivity and compassion.
Change is one thing that is permanent in life, and yet people are afraid of it. The only thing you can guarantee in life is change. There's nothing as permanent or sure as change. Change is actually inevitable. So if change is a constant, the key to life then is to learn how to manage and benefit from change. Change is beautiful. For example, I say this often, that there can be no improvement without change. And yet not all change is improvement. For example, if you used to weigh 110 pounds and now you weigh 170, that was a change. But it's not an improvement. It can actually be a threat to your health. But if you want to improve, you have to change. And God is a God of change, even though God never changes. Because everything God does is always temporary. He never does the same thing twice. No miracle in the Bible was ever repeated. God never healed anyone the same way twice. God is too creative to remain a constant. God is permanent, but he never does anything the same way twice. So you got to get used to change. And change is the most beautiful thing in the world, because change means that you are never going to be bored in life when you keep company with God. And do you know that we hate change because change threatens our security. And our security is what traps us. Nothing is more dangerous to self-destruction than comfort. This is why, Ecclesiastes 3 says this. It says, to everything there's a season. Then it says there's a time to be born and a time to die. There's a time to laugh and a time to mourn. We love the laughter part. But we forget that there's going to be a change where sometime we got to cry. We love the part where it says we gather. But what about the part where it says we scatter? Change comes into your life to remind you that nothing is permanent.
You got to learn, therefore, to live life very loosely. Don't hold on to anything too tight. That's why God has the principle of change in life. The danger of comfort and security is it traps you from development and growth. Whenever God wanted to do something great, he always upset comfort. Because the only way for God to take you where you're supposed to be is to get you to leave where you are. And where you are is secure. Change produces two things. It produces insecurity and the unknown. And both of them are very important for growth and development. And we are afraid because we expect things to remain the same. Like I said earlier, the most important approach to dealing with change is to expect it. We expect things to remain the same, and so we set ourselves up for disappointment. The way you benefit from change is you expect it.
As you look back over your life, if there's just one thing that you could do differently, what would it be?
That's always a tough question. I get that question asked a lot. I'm not sure, because everything that happened in my life produced me. Even the negatives, even the things that I might have failed in, the things I've made mistakes with, they were fantastic classrooms for me. And I believe the best thing in life to do is not to regret and try to change what happened, but to interpret it properly, maximize it, and use it to serve other people. And that's what I want to do with my past.
If you want another awesome video in our Black Excellence series, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.